Good evening to our viewers here in Guyana and online. I am Travis Chase with the Wednesday, June 27 edition of the HGP Nightly News. Here's what you need to know this evening. Police have detained two bus drivers who the lawmen say were speeding and caused the death of two Fellowship West Coast Demerara brothers. Jevon Vickery visited the family and filed this report.
28-year-old Sherman West and his brother 19-year-old Shalom Allen of lots 8 to 9 Fellowship West Coast Demerara were both pronounced dead on arrival when these two buses seen here struck down the brothers while they were on a pedal cycle. Police explained that one of the vehicles, after allowing a passenger to get off, speedily drove off and collided with the left handlebar of the bicycle. Traffic officials stated that as a result of the impact, the cyclist and his brother fell on the southern side of the road where they were struck by another vehicle. It was further stated that both drivers were tested and found to be within the legal limit of alcohol consumption. Family members of the late brothers told the media that the men were returning home from visiting a friend.
Saw one of the girls coming from the station and say, well, I should come by the station because the mother is up there. Got there and she wasn't there. She had already gone down to Lenora, where the bodies were. So I proceeded to Lenora and looked around and they were lying there, all dead. There's as much as I know, and the nurses tried to comfort the mother and the other brother.
Stepfather of the deceased, Philip Hudson. Both drivers are currently in police custody assisting with the investigation. Police in the district are of the opinion that speeding might have been a major contributing factor to the accident that claimed the lives of the brothers. Hudson, who is also an overseas-based Guyanese, recounted that on many occasions, drivers in particular show no respect for the police station, which is located meters away from where the accident occurred.
This place here is full of recklessness. I don't mind who say what. I stay at my window there all the time and I'm watching how people overtaking. They got no respect for pedestrians. They don't respect the road. They don't, especially the ones that are driving the minibuses. They are so reckless. I tell you, I do not come out to this yard anything after 6 o'clock in the night. Because that road, it's a dead trap.
Jevon Vickery, HGP Nightly News.
Tragic story. Thank you, Jevon. Justice has been served, and Guyana must reject authoritarian leadership in any form. A former Speaker of the National Assembly who had been named as a party in the CCJ third term matter also said that Guyana's constitution is intact. Here are the details. Natural Resources Minister Raphael Trotman was named as a party in the Attorney General versus Cedric Richardson, and in his former capacity as Speaker of the National Assembly in the recently handed down ruling at the Caribbean Court of Justice. Speaking with Nightly News in an invited comment on Tuesday, Minister Trotman said the ruling of the Caribbean Court of Justice means that justice has prevailed.
This case, I believe, is a watershed case. It has reaffirmed the rule of law and the paramountcy of Parliament to make decisions. And I believe, though expected, we are relieved that justice has finally been served.
Trotman believes that the Caribbean Court of Justice has vindicated the arguments that both him and the Attorney General have made from the inception, that, among other arguments, the inclusion of a presidential term limit in the Constitution of Guyana was done properly, fairly, and unanimously, and does not in any way diminish or interfere with the free will of the people. Putting on your legal hat, I see quite a lot of talk about it on Facebook and social media, but putting on your legal hat, does this mean that any former president can possibly run for the prime ministerial candidacy?
Well, let me say that apart from being a lawyer, I was also named in this very matter. It is really Cedric Richardson versus the Attorney General and Raphael Trotman. So I believe I've earned the right to speak in different regards. Your question is, can a former president come back? It was never expected that a former president would ever want to come back into office, and that is why the retirement package and salary is so good. You are not meant to get back and be involved. And so there's that ambiguity. I do believe that, strictly speaking, that a former president may come back as a member of a cabinet, but I don't know, given Mr. Jagdeo's personality, how he'd want to settle on under any other president, but that's a matter for him and whoever they name to work out.
Trotman urges the nation to learn from this episode and reject authoritarian leadership in all its forms.
I can tell you the coalition is quite confident of its re-election, so we're not going there. But I think legally, some bright lawyers, and I use bright in quotes, those who advise Mr. Cedric Richardson, aka Bar Jagdeo, to go to court, may want to tell him that he could also come back as Prime Minister. I don't see it happening, quite frankly. I think the people of Guyana will reject it as they embrace the constitutional reforms in 2001. It meant that we want to see our presidents go on and live peaceable and peaceful lives, as, say, Mr. Samuel Hines does, get a good fat retirement salary and stay out of the limelight and stop interfering with the day-to-day running of the state. It ought not and should not happen. But I think legally it is a distinct possibility.
The Caribbean Court of Justice on Tuesday ruled that two-term presidential term limits in Guyana must remain in keeping with a 2001 constitutional amendment, overturning decisions by the High Court and the Court of Appeal. The applicant, Cedric Richardson, who was shadowing for former President Barra Jagdeo, because Jagdeo wanted to run in the 2020 general elections, had argued that that section of the Constitution could only be amended by a referendum and not by Parliament. Travis Chase, HGP Nightly News. The option to rename the 10 administrative regions is still on the cards, but the renaming will only take place if persons living in those regions support the idea. Communities Minister Ronald Bulkan says consultation is underway. Warden James reports.
The minister has urged regional representatives to complete their consultations so that a determination can be made on whether those regions want to retain their current names which were given to them in the 1980s.
Namely Barima, Waini, Pomeroon, Supanam, as the case may be, all the way down to the Upper Takatu, Upper Essequibo. Or if those regions would like to have a different name. For example, the Upper Takatu, Upper Essequibo region is commonly and universally referred to as the Rupununi. So the opportunity is being offered to the residents all across Guyana, in each of the regions, to make a determination out of a consultative process if they want to keep their existing names or if they would like to have a name that they have more ownership over.
Minister Bulkan said that while the government would want to see the process move forward quickly, the government does not want to take a heavy-handed approach on the matter, but prefers to leave the process up to the people in the respective regions.
We are committed to allowing the democratic process and democratic principle to prevail. So all I can do is urge the respective RDCs to seek to complete and conclude this consultative process so that the administration can be able to...
The government is also looking to give each region their own flag. So far, the regions have received specimens of the flags and they have been asked to make a determination with regards to the regional symbols.
And if they would like to see any variation of the specimens that they were given, at the end of that exercise, the central government will examine all of the contributions and submissions that have been made to be able to do a full assessment as to what will be the eventual and the end product.
The move is intended to implement a decentralized governing system. The assignment of flags by the administration to the administrative regions will serve as a representation of their independence. Royden James, HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Royden. Funds allocated for the second phase of the Kitty Market will now go towards much-needed drainage works within Georgetown. The council made that decision during its statutory meeting on Monday. Jevon Vickery reports.
The council's decision also outlines that Phase 2 of the Kitty Market will now be funded by the cash-strapped council itself. This means that the Kitty Market project, which is still at Phase 1 with electrical work still being done, will now take even longer to be completed. Some councillors expressed disappointment in the engineers department for the slothful work on the market that has been under repair since 2016. Councillor Carlisle Goring questioned why the funds were not used to finish the market project. He then blamed the council for procrastinating.
I was hoping that this project, the Kitty Market project, would have been completed so that vendors could vend in a secure environment. But I trust the judgment of the Minister and by extension Cabinet and Government of Guyana to allocate the much needed resources to South Georgetown where there is some serious drainage issues.
The drainage project will cost the council $61 million, but the $50 million allocated for the Phase 2 of the project will be used. The council was informed that the outstanding costs will be gifted to the council. Head of the Finance Committee Oscar Clark told the councillors that it was Minister of Communities Ronald Bulkan who had suggested to the mayor that the funds be redirected.
There is nothing ulterior or no ulterior motive in this motion. It's a very straightforward motion which tells us that having regard to the fact that there has been an emergency situation in South Georgetown with respect to drainage, that a decision was taken to expend a sum of $61 million, and this decision was taken at Cabinet.
Clark stated that the council was not in a position to fund the emergency drainage works. Jevon Vickery, HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Jevon. After the break, who will be appointed police commissioner? PSC nominees approved. Paul Slow tops the list. And attempted murder of Durban Street woman accused for High Court. A new commissioner of police could be appointed shortly. That's because the names of the nominees on the Police Service Commission have been approved. The question is, who will it be? Here are the details. A conversation will soon take place between President David Granger and the opposition leader on the appointment of the next Commissioner of Police. This is as a result of the approval by the National Assembly of the nominees for the Police Service Commission. Minister of Social Cohesion and Chairman of the Standing Committee on Appointments, Dr. George Norton, moved the motion for the adoption of the 11th report of the committee, which was presented in the House in April.
The committee agreed to proceed with the appointment of members of the commission. Thereafter, the members present unanimously, the members present at the meeting unanimously agreed that the following persons would be nominated for appointment to the Police Service Commission. 1, Mr. Paul Edmund Slow, DSM, Retired Assistant Commissioner. 2, Mr. Clinton Andrew Conway, Retired Assistant Commissioner of Police. 3, Ms. Vesta Geneva Adams, Retired Woman Assistant Commissioner of Police. And 4, Ms. Claire Alexis Jarvis, Retired Woman Assistant Commissioner of Police. At the 31st meeting of the committee held on Wednesday, April 11, 2018, members present unanimously adopted the 11th report on the appointment of members of the Police Service Commission. The committee recommends that Mr. Paul Edmund Slow, that Mr. Clinton Andrew Conway, and Ms. Vista Geneva Adams and Ms. Claire Alexis Jarvis as the National Assembly's choice to the President for appointment as members of the Police Service Commission.
The Police and/or the Public Service Commission make appointments to public office and can remove and exercise disciplinary control over persons holding or acting in such offices. The Commission's life had expired in August 2017. Former Home Affairs Minister Clement Rohi argued that there were no meaningful consultations for the recommendations of the names for the Police Service Commission.
Mr. Speaker, there was no meaningful consultation as called for in the Constitution to constitute this new body. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, what is resentful in respect to the Constitution, in respect to the composition that we are now considering, there's not one civilian. Traditionally, Mr. Speaker, the last Police Service Commission had at least one civilian.
President David Granger had directed that all police promotions be put on hold. In explaining his decision, the president said that he felt that the integrity of the process was compromised and that it would not be in the public's interest to proceed with those promotions. The head of state had pointed out too, quote, "There is a danger that persons who were not qualified would be recommended for supersession and persons who were qualified would be left behind," unquote. A perusal of the list for promotion by retired Commissioner Silal Prasad shows that Prasad wanted Assistant Commissioner of Police Clifton Hicken to be promoted to Deputy Commissioner of Police, while former Crime Chief Senior Superintendent Wendell Blanham to be promoted to Assistant Commissioner. Prasad did not make any recommendation for David Ramnarine, who is the acting top cop.
You have 5 Assistant Commissioners, 7 Senior Superintendents, 7 superintendents, 32 cadets who are to be promoted as assistant superintendents, and 34 inspectors. All of these vacancies have to be filled by this commission. We shall watch carefully every move you make. Every move you make, we will be watching you to see how it will unfold. We will be watching to see how it will unfold, Mr. Speaker.
Retired Assistant Commissioner Paul Slow, commonly known among police officers as a wrong man, heads the list of persons to be appointed to the Police Service Commission. That announcement has several senior ranks of the Guyana Police Force literally at the edge of their seats, according to well-placed sources. Travis Chase, HGP Nightly News. A husband and wife will spend the next 40 years behind bars for the 2014 Boxing Day murder of their relative. The story from Jevon Vickery.
It was an emotional scene inside the courtroom of Justice Sandil Kisoon as 38-year-old Vishwani Ragnath broke down in tears after she was informed of her 40-year jail sentence for killing her uncle Sunil Ramsundar on Boxing Day 2014. Also convicted was 39-year-old Nairan Thakurdial for the murder of Ramsundar. The couple were convicted for stabbing Ramsundar to death at Skull City Potential West Bank, Demerara. Police say that on the day of the murder there was a dispute which resulted in an altercation between Ramsundar and his niece. It was stated that Thakurdial and Ramsundar became involved in a scuffle, during which Ramsundar was stabbed about the body by his niece and the man. Thakurdial, while maintaining his innocence, stated, quote, "I would like to express remorse to the family of the deceased. I would like to go back to my 6 children out there," end of quote. Ragnath, in her bid for a lenient judgment, stated, quote, "I am sorry for whatever happened. I've lost my uncle, I have 3 children, and I beg the court for forgiveness," end of quote. The judge deducted a total of 10 years from their sentences after taking into consideration the time they spent on remand pending trial, a plea in mitigation by their lawyer, and their expression of remorse. Jevon Vickery, HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Jevon. Still in the police blotter, a laborer who is to stand a trial in the High Court for attempted murder is maintaining his story that his ex-girlfriend fell on the knife. Here are the details. Cleveland Williams has been committed to stand a trial in the High Court for the attempted murder of his ex-girlfriend. The police case against Williams is that on April 17 at Durban Street Lodge, he unlawfully and maliciously wounded Lashana Boyce with intent to commit murder. After that altercation at Durban Street, Williams had gone into hiding. 2 days later, he decided that he wanted to turn himself into the police. But before that, he spoke with Nightly News about what caused that fight between him and his ex-girlfriend.
I was sitting waiting for my child mother to bring my daughter to school, and she didn't turn up with my daughter. And after sitting for a while, she come from the direction of my daughter's school, so I go over the road to her and ask her, "Girl, what happened? Why you pass and collect the snacks and things from my daughter?" She was like, "You were supposed to ask me nothing. You're supposed to stay 100 yards away from me." I said, "What's my daughter talking about?" And she just carry on, and me, she ended up start fighting. I had a knife in me, yes. I take out the knife, yes, right?
Now that Williams will face a judge and jury, he seems to be sticking to his story, which he told to Nightly News and to the magistrate, that his ex-lover fell on a knife that he had in his possession, and that he did not deliberately stab her.
When me, she fall in the drain, punch her back, me and be on the back, and she land on the knife point. And I get she 2 slaps in her face, and me mother, me nephew, them come hold her for me.
But you did not deliberately stab her?
No, I would never do that to the girl. I love the girl, you know.
So why she took a restraining order out against you?
I got meet she with a mom, but and when I talk to she about it, she must don't like what I tell she.
The magistrate obviously did not believe the story told to her by Williams and ruled that there is sufficient evidence for him to be tried in the High Court. Williams also made a bail application, which was denied. Travis Chase, HGP, Nightly News. Police on the west coast of Demerara have captured a suspected thief who they believe was among 3 persons who robbed a supermarket owned by 2 Chinese immigrants. Javon Vickery spoke with the owners and filed this report.
The 3 thieves seen in surveillance video here gained access through the back door. The couple, who requested their identities be withheld, explained that because of the host of robberies occurring within the district, special emphasis was placed on security. One of the business owners stated that the thieves managed to escape with 2 cell phones among other items and $80,000 in cash. The thieves gained access through a ruse. They had disconnected the restaurant's water supply and lured the owners outside.
We don't have any water. We don't know what happened. What happened? No water, and let our worker go to outside to check the water price. And then outside near here the price, no problem. We check good. But when we go inside, also no water. Any we know that the price, everything good, and also still no water.
It was while one of the owners was outside checking to see what caused the sudden shortage of water that the thieves made their way in the building.
After 1 second, I go to outside and see my worker already. The 2 people hide their face, catch the worker, and at that time I run inside and lock the door. But the door got a trouble, only lock one key. The door have 2 keys, is very safe.
The authorities say that based on information received following the robbery,
8 to 3.4% as the administration continues to watch closely the performance of some sectors, says Finance Minister Winston Jordan. Rodin James reports.
The minister says the economy is performing reasonably well at mid-year, but not as it should, and this is because of the dismal performance of some sectors. He added that because of this reality, A decision was taken to adjust the economic growth rate from that which was earlier predicted.
The economy has been doing reasonably well. I say reasonably because we're still having setbacks as it relates to sugar. In fact, I had made a prediction at the Caribbean Development Bank meeting about a couple of weeks ago in Grenada that we had revised the growth rate downwards from 3.8 for the 2018 to 3.4. And this was principally due to the fact that our outlook for sugar has become even more bleak relative to the position that we had in November 2017 when we were presenting the 2018 budget. It's unfortunate, but sugar seems to be declining before it can actually stabilize.
Mr. Jordan says even with the sugar sector's continued poor performance, the government never allowed that situation to place a damper on the other production targets. He noted that in the case of rice, which performed well at the first half of 2017, this sector is expected to do a lot better at the end of 2018.
We had a bit of a scare with bauxite after the sanctions that were imposed by the United States. There seems to be a moratorium on the sanctions to October of this year, by which time hopefully the sanctions will either disappear or the situation will improve and not affect bauxite output and the targets that we had set. We seem to have good performances in a number of the other sectors, so to speak. So at this stage, the overall 3.4 for the year is what we are holding to.
The minister says by the time the mid-year report is out, which is scheduled to be released in July, then it will be known definitively how things are shaping up for the remainder of the year. He also addressed the question about the ministry's ability to forecast economic growth rate. This is in light of the fact that the economic growth rate in Guyana had been revised downwards in the previous 2 consecutive years.
Our ability to forecast growth rate is always dependent on the information that we get from the various sectors, both public sector and the private sector. Lest we think that only the public sector has a problem with forecasting their production numbers, the private sector also. We have issues getting accurate data out of the private sector in a number of areas. So and sometimes we have to use proxy information, sometimes we have to use our own estimation, and so on.
Last year, there was a significant decrease in the gold declaration, coupled with the poor performance of the sugar sector, which caused the economy to underperform. Royden James, HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Royden. While government is pushing for higher gold production levels from mining companies, their operations, constantly under the watchful eye of the Minister of Natural Resources, must be done in a safe manner and in keeping with best international standards. Kristen Macklingam reports.
According to Minister Raphael Trotman, although the aim is to ensure maximum output by mining companies to significantly boost gold production, the challenges faced by these businesses cannot be overlooked.
We are concerned nationally about production, ensuring that it is met, and to find out what it is we need to do to assist in ensuring that you get to your targets. So that's mainly why we're here, to just make sure that all is well and that everyone is functioning as per our understanding and agreements.
Minister Trotman, during a recent site visit to Australian gold mining company Troy Resources at Karooni Region 7, he says that the main aim of this visit was to observe operations at these mining locations and discuss the operations itself.
To get a sense of where you are relative to your production targets, both at the half of the year and where you see yourself going, weather and other intermittent irritants like the road being destroyed, etc. Where do you see yourselves at the end of the year? Also, just to give us an idea of the numbers of staff. You did give some percentages, but some numbers would help.
Minister Trotman explained that reports from the company suggest some challenges with the current weather pattern that is affecting the retrieval of the ore. Other complaints include illegal mining and the destruction of the roads by loggers. But he says that government will work with the mining companies to overcome these hindrances. Meanwhile, Chief Executive of Troy Resources Ken Nilsson says that although projections for production will be between 60,000 and 70,000 ounces per year, with just about a year and a half of reserves remaining, the company is also exploring other avenues that will create additional employment for Guyanese.
Hopefully we can do better, but it's all in the hands of whoever placed the gold there and our ability to make it work. The workforce we have today is undergoing a reasonably dramatic change, in the sense we've got to the stage where we have got most of our local people trained to a stage where we can actually hand over a lot of the duties that our expats have been performing. So we are reducing the expats on site, and it's also been seen as perhaps a bit of a worry for some, but that's not the case. This is what we do everywhere. The idea is by the time we are finished we will only have 1 or 2 expats.